just hit unmute for us. Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Jack Packard, man in a rubber costume, here for The Escapist.
I'm Darren Mooney, CGI with lifeless eyes.
And I'm Liz Finnegan. I have a couple of opinions.
Liz, thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So I am the community manager for Stack Up. It is a military nonprofit focused on combating veteran suicide and promoting positive mental health using gaming. So I get paid to play video games with awesome people. It's pretty cool.
That is beautiful. You are also a certifiable Godzilla expert. As soon as we said we were going to talk Godzilla, you kicked down both Darren and I's door, which is very impressive.
Quite impressive, given we're on different continents. Yeah,
right.
Yep.
And so we appreciate your expertise here.
Thank you.
So
Sorry for the distraction. Just send the bill to someone else.
No problem. No, we'll get them all fixed.
Liz
Obviously,
has long been thought of as a protector of doors. Really, I think we're trying to piece together why Liz is hurting people, and we don't know why.
It really,
Because there's an evil brunette version of me out there.
kicking down doors is the natural order, and we should just be thankful that Liz chooses not to do anything to us, to bodily harm to us, only the doors. We are going to be talking about Godzilla vs. Kong, the newest one in the newest version of the MonsterVerse. Obviously, we'll dip a little bit into Godzilla, Godzilla King of All Monsters, Kong Skull Island, and, of course, Kong vs. Godzilla.
Whoa. That was in the 60s.
Yeah, that's 1962. Kong vs. Godzilla is I believe it's the third entry in the Godzilla franchise, when you need a little boy after Godzilla raids again. And that's the point at which they decided that the future for Godzilla was combining him with other monsters. Because I think a couple of years later, it was Mothra versus Godzilla from her own standalone movie. And was a Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, I think was the same year.
Mm-hmm.
If I know my monster verse, which I probably don't.
I trust both of you implicitly because I don't know. I've always liked the Godzilla movies. Godzilla is one of my favorite movie creatures. Godzilla is, to me, very emblematic of one of my favorite things about genre film, which is monster as metaphor. I've always really... But I'll tell you what, I do miss Guy in a big costume knocking down cardboard buildings. I think that's a little more fun. That's just me.
Or claymation. I miss claymation as well, or stop motion effects. Again, this is where I not to tip my hand too early, I don't hate Godzilla vs. Kong, but I feel like I'm going to be the designated bad guy on here. I'm going to be the guy who's mid monologue when I get evaporated by either Jack or Liz when I start talking about this. But one of the things I do find interesting is with CGI, and particularly with the verisimilitude CGI, the CGI that's meant to look like real life, or meant to look like real monkeys and real kind of lizards.
Mm-hmm.
I find myself having a bigger difficulty suspending my critical faculties, as it were, or my suspension of disbelief with that. In that, when I'm watching men in rubber suits throw each other against cardboard buildings, I'm like, this is amazing. This is perfect. This is the platonic ideal of monster movie making. I'm all for this. But when I watch CGI monkeys that and lizards that have all the scale details and the hair perfectly kind of replicated, and the camera positioned in Hong Kong, so it looks like real Hong Kong. When I watch that, I'm a little bit this is kind of weird that I'm watching what looks like a very real city get demolished very graphically in extended detail, and it's kind of strange that there's no real human element. It's like those men in rubber suits throwing each other through buildings, but when you do it with CGI, it becomes kind of uncanny for me in a weird way, and I can't quite quantify. I know.
I would argue that earlier films in the MonsterVerse, the three predecessors, but particularly Godzilla and King of the Monsters, really tried for that human element. They focused so heavily on this family drama, and it just sucked. It was not done well. I'm supposed to believe that this family is just mourning the death of their son, but they have one picture in the house over here on the tablet. This is
Mhm.
the only picture that they have, and it's not even a picture of just the kid. It's like one single family picture. I'm sorry, I don't believe that. And you know what? Just throw that away. Throw it away. There was, with the sole exception of John C. Reilly, because I really cared about that in Skull Island. That
Mhm.
that meant something to me that he got home. But outside of that, it just they failed miserably. So this time they went, screw it, let's just have them fight, and it was fun.
It's more efficient this way. Like we only
Yes.
need one picture. Yes, dead son, sad. Make struggle real. That's all you need. Much like Kong Skull Island, which I'll be honest with you is up there as far as
Yeah.
these four. For me, it's very efficient.
Yes.
Unlike the older Godzilla movies, which spend a long amount of time with scientists in rooms, here, boom, 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 get to monster fight because that's what we care about.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I did actually, because I watched this again this morning in order to make sure that I was being entirely fair to Godzilla versus Kong. And if you watch it, it is edited like it looks like it's not edited to its own narrative tempo. It's very much edited to the stopwatch. Like Godzilla first surfaces in the bay of Pensacola, Florida, at exactly the clock tick
10
between
minutes.
nine. That's it, 9:59 to 10 minutes. He's like, boom, Godzilla is leveling a city within 10 minutes of this movie starting, including the corporation kind of logos at the start, Legendary and Warner Brothers. Then, like, by like going 14 to 15, so 14:57 you get a shot of the side of Alexander Sargard's head. Then at 15 minutes exactly he turns the camera and it's like, this is our human lead. 15 minutes, boom, we got it down to a fine science. Then you get to like 40 minutes in and it's like, oh my god, that's Godzilla's tail fin heading towards the like convoy. It's like, okay, we're getting our first throwdown 40 minutes in almost exactly.
Perfect.
Yep.
And then you're like, you get to the climax and it's like, okay, we are 40 minutes out from the end of the movie. This is just going to be 40 minutes of monsters throwing down, almost literally to the exact second.
Mhm.
And I find like I admire that because it's notable. Like you mentioned the fact that like this is the culmination of the so-called Monsterverse and that it's bringing together not only, you know, Godzilla from Godzilla and King of the Monsters, Kong from Kong Skull Island, but like it's the shortest of the four films by a
Yes.
sizable margin, I believe, as well. I think even Kong Skull Island is like 6 or 7 minutes longer.
Mhm.
And obviously the two Godzilla movies clock in at over 2 hours. It's kind of impressive that like this big culmination is neatly under 2 hours. It's an hour and 52 minutes. So with credits, it's like an hour and 45 roughly.
Perfect.
And it's like it is like Adam Wingard knows what he's doing, to give him credit, and he knows what you want, and he's giving you what you want. And I kind of admire the efficiency with which he does that.
One thing I do want to point out is I thought it was very interesting that you kept using the word culmination. I think there are 3 separate unique perspectives from which you can judge this movie. The first is as a standalone film, absent everything else in the Monsterverse. That's a sucky way to look at it, but that's a way to look at it. As the culmination of this 7-year, 4-film universe that they've created, this is it, this is the end of it. Or if the fans get their way, if they're loud enough, as the continuation. I have found that my opinion of this movie is completely dependent on the perspective I have when looking at it. If this is a continuation, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I love this. I can't wait for what's next because of everything that they've laid out. You know, Oxygen Destroyer last movie, we know what that means. We know who's coming. That's Destroyer. So, I mean, we got this. There's so much that they left that can be done where it's like, this is a great setup for that. If this is the culmination, my opinion changes. As a standalone, it was just fun.
I think that's a really good point. I love that they finally like brought us into the Hollow Earth. That's, you know, Journey to the Center of the Earth stuff. That's a lot of fun we can have in this pre-built fantasy universe. I think I'm so down with it. I saw King of the Monsters, or King of All Monsters. Is it King of
No,
the?
King of the Monsters.
King of the Monsters.
Okay.
It's named after the American remake of the original Godzilla film, which was released in 1956, I think.
Like
if I remember correctly.
King of the Monsters to me, even though that was the second of the Godzilla movies, right? Or was that the third?
It was the
It was
third
the
monster,
third
second
total.
Godzilla,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So like that to me was the culmination of like, guess what? Godzilla's king. Here's all of our seeds. This is like that was the Avengers, and now we can start going to Iron Man 3. So I see this as more of an Iron Man 3, and less of an Avengers, if I'm going to use
Right.
Marvel
But-
terms.
But I think like Kong is a bigger deal to Western audiences. I mean, like I love Rodan, I love Ghidorah as much as anybody. Mothra is,
The
fantastic.
queen.
Mothra is the queen. Like,
Queen.
yeah, Mothra is amazing. Although I do feel really sad. Like again, this is one of the things with the American kind of remakes where it's like we're never going to get anything as surreal as kind of Mothra's little heralds and kind of the little women who speak for her and all this kind of like oddness that's in the original Japanese movies.
I mean, they
Um,
did technically exist in King of the Monsters. They were just on different continents.
Yeah, I suppose. Um, But like again, though, the thing is like I think that like Godzilla versus Kong is a bigger deal because Kong is a bigger deal to American audiences. In that like he's our guy, so to speak. He has his own franchise quite apart from the Toho kind of like monsters.
Mhm.
So I would argue that yeah, it's like King of the Monsters is a big deal, but that King of the Monsters is really just your big sequel where it's like you're part of a whole new universe. And then Godzilla versus Kong is like, oh, by the way, that universe includes the collision of properties in which people are invested, where characters have had their own solo movies. And don't get me wrong, I am totally down for, I don't know, a Garth Edwards Mothra movie or whatever, but that's not how I think these were laid out, to be fair.
No, I think that's really that's a fair point, I suppose. Let's I guess let's structure this in such a way where we start our criticisms of the movie of Godzilla versus Kong, and that will hopefully lead us back to all of the other movies. This one I felt. Even though Darren, I believe you that you are exactly correct in that they timed this out perfectly, though to me it felt slower. I felt like, we got in Kong Skull Island, we got a fantastic Kong reveal within the first couple of minutes. That's all I needed. Now I'm hooked.
Yeah.
In King of the Monsters, I'm trying to think of what our first
The
monster
birth of
was.
Mothra, isn't it? Like the cocooning, the uncocooning of
Mhm.
Mothra with the
Right,
hand. If I
the-
remember. Although to be fair, you also get like the
A
replay of-
flashback.
You get the flashback.
San
You get the
Francisco.
Batman versus Superman version of like, what happened in Godzilla.
Right, but like that entire Mothra sequence is like that's our
Yeah.
intro into the movie, which is like, oh, monster! This is why I'm here. I am here for monsters. In Godzilla versus Kong, I keep wanting to say Kong versus Godzilla. It tells you what a Kong head I am.
I was about to say we know which side Jack falls on this.
That's my bias. That's my bias. Nick keeps telling us that apparently me and Darren are a little quiet. So Darren,
Okay, let me turn up
You
my
just
volume.
don't care as much as I do.
it's because we're not shouting as much.
How's that? Is that better now? Is that?
I feel like you're on Liz's wavelength now. You're almost as good as Liz now. Great.
we aspire to be like.
It's good to have goals.
Absolutely. And so I feel like with Godzilla versus Kong, we had too long without a monster in the beginning of the movie. And I know like they're kind of setting up all of the players for this movie, but I don't believe we had an intro with a monster. And I
Yeah.
watched it literally this morning, so I should remember.
I mean, Kong woke up and
Yeah.
walked into a waterfall and
We
got
Kong
angry,
Morning.
and his little girlfriend showed
That was
up.
this
It-
movie. Oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
great. Never
Yeah.
mind. Never mind.
That
I
was
take away my-
immediate.
Yeah, no, it gives you like it introduced you to both Kong and Godzilla separately, like
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
within 10 minutes, which was
Within 10
very-
minutes.
very efficient. And the opening credits, which are done in the style of like Edward's Godzilla and like Robert's kind of Kong Skull Island, where you have all the names and you have like the
The
exposition
brackets.
stuff. Yeah, and you have like the redacting going on as well,
Yes.
which if you like, there's lots of freeze frame bonuses, but they're all kind of very much like sassy freeze frame bonuses, where it's like, oh yeah, blame the writers for this one sort of thing, or
Yeah.
you know, visual effects artist, well, he's responsible for Kong's like lighting up whatever magic axe. But like, so I think that it does get there quite like watching this for review, I was quite impressed with how quickly it got there. And like I think and again, this is one of those to give the movie credit and to acknowledge that Wingart knows what audiences want, even if I raise my eyebrow at it a little bit.
Mhm.
Like, there's a moment where, like, Alexander Skarsgård, who is nominally like the human protagonist of this, I really don't know how they decided he got title billing. It's just like roll a dice.
Yeah.
It's like, is it Tim or Rebecca Hall? And Rebecca Hall was just in Iron Man 3. This guy's been in stuff anyway. But so he shows up and he's like, we need to find the Hollow Earth, and Kong is the only person who can help us find the Hollow Earth. And like, they built this enclosure to contain Kong and to isolate him from Godzilla. And literally the next shot is him on an aircraft carrier chained up like he is in like any other like big King Kong movie.
Mhm.
And like, part of me is like, I know I don't need to see the scene where they like inject thousands of like, bananas with like tranquilizer in order to get him subdued so they can drag him out.
Wow.
But part of me is like,
Bananas.
I feel, well, I
Wow.
don't know. Like, part of me is like, I feel, okay. I feel like it,
Kong is canonically a meat eater. We see him eat his victims over and
And
over and
drink
over
their
again.
skull.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay,
like
fine.
That was
So-
amazing.
that was
Yeah,
banana
like,
shaming right
yeah.
there. That-
Okay, fine. They inject a bunch of skull crawlers with tranquilizers and just let them loose,
Thank
whatever
you,
it is, or like octopuses that he kind of sucks up or whatever. Like, part of me is thinking that like that would be a fun 5-minute segment of how we drugged Kong and got him on an aircraft carrier to drive him across the earth. And I know
Right.
we don't need it. I
Mhm.
know we don't need it, and I know the movie's more efficient without it. But part of me is like, feels like you're missing some opportunity for some fun stuff here. And
Yeah.
like that was kind of like one of my issues.
You're right, but I feel like this is the length that this movie should be. In fact, I could even see a few cuts here and there. No matter how much fun Millie Bobby Brown and her little Australian friend is, we can just whoopity, it's just whooping them. That's me.
We
cutting.
only needed him to pop in and say the phrase Mecha Godzilla and then leave, and that would have been enough.
Yes, and I get their purpose in the movie. I think they have a fun little B story, but we could have trimmed those a little bit. But efficiency. I think that's like the key to all of these is efficiency. Even the ones that go over 2 hours. They do a very good job of getting information across. It doesn't matter if it's logical. It doesn't matter if it contradicts something that happened in a different movie. This is the information. Now go watch big things fight.
I will say that there was one area that either it was trimmed or it wasn't even thought of, that the absence of it upset me. Now, I am typically of the mindset that any human character should exist solely for the purpose of being kaiju hype men. Walking into these films and expecting, a big meaningful story element about the humans is like if I walk into Mortal Kombat in 2 weeks and I'm like, why isn't this a provocative narrative on income inequality? Like, that's not what I'm here for. That being said, Sarazawa's son is in this.
Yes.
This man dedicated a significant portion of his life to Godzilla, abandoned his family seemingly, died for Godzilla, and now his son is creating a huge monstrous weapon to take Godzilla down, and no one says anything about it.
I mean,
that doesn't make sense to me.
yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure that they explicitly mention the relationship that he has to his father.
Just
Like,
his
unless-
name.
Just his name. Like, if you weren't paying attention, you would not pick up on the fact that he's Sarazawa's son.
Yeah.
And like, you even get a
I
little
didn't.
moment.
I'll be honest with you. I
Oh,
didn't.
yeah.
I did not pick up on that.
Like, and there's a little moment at the end where they get like the formula from like the center of the earth, the hollow earth, and like Damien Bitcher's like Walter Simmons is like, plug it in, and like Sarazawa gets, wait, but we haven't done the research, and it's like, I feel like if I knew anything about this character and this dynamic, this moment would make more sense. Like the fact that we get the little moment where he's like, are you sure you want to do this? It's like, I don't feel like I know enough about this character for him to be asking, are you sure you want to do this?
Fair.
Yeah, and I feel like that was a real missed opportunity. I think that's something that could have been fun and fan service.
Mhm.
there was this waxing poetic going on where he died for this mecha version of the real creature that his father died for, and it's just like no one said anything about it. That just wasn't a thing. Like when the trailer first came out, I was the one who sat there and dissected every single frame of it. So I knew he was there. I knew he was involved with Mechagodzilla, and I had constructed this entire film in my mind. Obviously, I didn't get the awesome rubber suit that I was expecting. I was expecting one of those like half rubber suit, half mecha, Terminator shots coming out of it. And, I didn't get that. But I really thought there was going to be something with this kid.
Well, and maybe that's why it ended up on the cutting room floor, is because in order to do his death any justice, they probably had a C arc with that character, and then you cut a little bit. Oh, now we have to cut a little bit more. Well, now we just cut the whole arc because it's adding too much time to the movie. That would be my guess.
Yeah. And I mean, like, to be fair, Wingard has pretty much said that. Like, he's also said that, like, the character of, like, Lance Reddick, who appears, like, Lance Reddick gets his own credit in the opening season. We talked about this off mic. But, like, he gets his solo kind of credit. Like, it's like, and starring Lance Reddick and Kyle Chandler. And, like, if you were watching the movie, Lance Reddick appears, like, in the back left-hand corner of, like, a shot saying, we've ordered a complete evacuation of the city. And that's his entire role.
That's it.
And Wingard has said, yeah, no, we originally had him in. He was going to do multiple scenes. He was going to be there for lots of exposition with Kyle Chandler's character. There were going to be debates and stuff like that happening, and ethical stuff. And it's like, it just didn't suit the movie. Like, I just wanted the tempo of the movie to be faster than it was. So he got cut out, and that's fine. And I mean, like, I don't think, I'm not saying like release the Wingard cut, because I'm 90% certain. Like, Wingard has said the version of the movie that exists is the ideal version that he wants to make. And I look at it and I think, yes, exactly, because he knows, he's talked about his priorities in making it. And you look at the movie and they reflect those priorities. But at the same time, I mean, I want to be very careful how I phrase this, because I think Liz is right. You don't come to a monster movie rooting for the humans. I think Liz's observation that, like, the primary role of humans in a Godzilla movie is to serve as kaiju hype men. Like, their job is to say, like, to look on in wonder and awe. And, like, that's my big problem with both King of the Monsters and Godzilla versus Kong. Like, I think, like, I know Edward's Godzilla movie has lots of problems with it, particularly like the weird decision to make Aaron Taylor Johnson your everyman. But like, let's not get into that. But like, I think like Edward's movie, like, actually at moments captures this sense of like wonder and awe and, oh my God, this thing has manifested on Earth and we do not understand it. Very similar to, I don't know if you guys have seen Shin Godzilla from Hideki Anno. Like that is an amazing film because it captures the sense of everything that we know about the universe has changed within the past half hour because this thing has appeared. And like, even say Kong Skull Island, where I think Liz singled out John C. Reilly's character, and if I recall correctly, Voight Roberts actually like went back and shot more material with Reilly because it worked so well, which is amazing. You're shooting a monster movie. You're shooting a monster movie. It's like, I want more of the human dude. But like, even outside of like John C. Reilly's character in Kong Skull Island, I would argue like none of the characters are like complex or nuanced or three-dimensional. I can't even remember many of their names. I think one of them is named Campbell, and I only remember that because it's obviously Joseph Campbell's Heart of Darkness is what we're doing. So we kind of shoved a reference in there. But like, the movie knows what it's doing with those archetypes. So you have Samuel L. Jackson doing Marlon Brando from Apocalypse Now, and that's fun to watch. You have Shea Wiggum doing a human sacrifice, which completely backfires. Like, that's one of my favorite sequences in the Monsterverse, where Shea Wiggum's like, where he's like, eat me, and it's like, nope, and just but like, you have John Goodman doing stuff that John Goodman does in these B movies, which is, I'm going to stomp in and I'm going to own this movie for as much of this movie as I'm in. And like, I don't want to say I care for the human characters in Skull Island, but I feel like I'm engaged with them. I understand what they're doing, and I don't find them irritating or unpleasant or unnecessary, because they're like, this thing is horrifying, and I'm like, yes, this thing is horrifying. Whereas like, you get to King of the Monsters, and like, there's a moment in King of the Monsters where I think I like mentally checked out of King of the Monsters. I think Godzilla vs. Kong is much better than King of the Monsters, to be clear.
Well, you can see it.
Oh yeah, that's exactly it. Like, yeah, it's not all white fuzz. It's not like blue or orange like filters going on there. But like, there's a moment where like Bradley Whitford. And again, Bradley Whitford feels like he's playing a character that was written as 20 years old, but is somehow 60. But Bradley Whitford wanders into a shot from the background, holding a cup of coffee and says, "I'm telling you, Barnes was right. It's a hollow earth. That's how he gets so quickly from one side to the other." And I'm like, you are talking about a giant reptile monster that destroys cities. You have just proven that the earth is hollow at its core. You're about to discover that Atlantis is real. Also, there's a 3-headed space dragon. I feel like you should be more excited than, well, this is Mondays, am I right?
He's so blasé about it.
Yeah, like there's moments in King of the Monsters where they're watching, somehow Washington DC is simultaneously on fire and flooded, and they're looking at it and they're just looking at it. And it's like, yep, that's a thing that's happening, and it's not even numb awe. It's just yeah. So, what are you doing after work? You want to get a drink? I think we should get a drink after work. I think today is a drink after work day. And part of my issue with Godzilla versus Kong is that there are no hype men. None of them are hyped or awed. Everybody just accepts Godzilla as a fact of life. There's a moment where Kyle Chandler early in the movie utters the line, and it's a jaw-dropping line in terms of, I think it gets why I have trouble with the movie, where Kyle Chandler says, "Monsters are like people. They change. Godzilla's out there and he's hurting people, and we don't know why." And it's like, dude, I'm really sorry that Godzilla isn't answering your texts anymore.
Also, you just spent the entire previous movie understanding exactly what Godzilla was doing at all times. Your character, that was the purpose of your characters. I understand animal behavior. I understand predator behavior. I will tell the army what to do. And now suddenly your character goes, actually, I don't know what I'm doing at all. I'm not the star of this movie.
He talks about Godzilla like he's there's a moment where his daughter hops in the car, and Gillian Dennison is quite rightly going, I'm sorry, I'm referring to actors rather than characters, but I think that's fair in the context.
That's fair. I don't know their names.
Right. Gillian Dennison's character is well, why have we got to do it? And Millie Bobby Brown says, if we don't help Godzilla, no one will. And it's I don't want to watch a movie where a bunch of plucky teens help Godzilla. I just want to watch a Godzilla movie. That's all I want.
Yes. Sorry. No, I think that is a very valid criticism, and I hear that criticism. Every single drop of it is wiped away because the fights are really fun.
They're so fun.
Fair.
And they're very fun. I do wish I want just one time for us to have a wide static shot where we get to see the destruction without funny camera tricks. Give me that. Mm-hmm. That's the thing I miss the most about the older movies where it was guys in costumes beating up cardboard buildings. Nice big wide shots to give us a fair scope of all the destruction.
Right.
But I think there's a good reason for that, though, to be fair. I think Wingard's explained one of the reasons why he didn't do that is because and again, the fight sequences are amazing. They're WWE SmackDown stuff with monkeys and lizards. What more could you want? But Wingard has said basically the reason why he doesn't do wide shots or establishing shots is because in order to get the fight sequences to work the way that they did, he had to cheat. And he had to cheat by making the buildings taller depending on where the shot was. Because in order for Kong to have the advantage, he needed to be able to swing and jump from things.
Yep.
Okay. And the Hong Kong skyscrapers, and I've been there, the Hong Kong skyscrapers are pretty tall, but there's not enough of them for him to swing from unless you do that cheating with perspective. So to give Wingard credit there, I like that I'm the tough guy, and I'm let's give Wingard
No, and but I don't want to take away from any of the action sequences in any of the movies because they are all a ton of fun. It is destruction. It is violence. It is violence that knows that it's fun, so it has a lot of fun with it. That's a very shallow note. It's just give me one wide, give me one punch. You know what I'm thinking of here in Godzilla versus Kong is that the very first punch thrown by Kong to Godzilla, which by the way, just sets the pace so beautifully.
Yep.
But it's a full shot. You get the full ship.
Aircraft carrier.
You see Kong, giant. You see Godzilla, giant. And just the haymaker. It was the wide shot really helps establish that power. and I just wanted more of it. I just wanted
Yeah.
more fun things, but overall, it's super, super amazing action.
And honestly, I think that's a big reason why, like, even with the flaws, and there is no suggesting that this is a flawless movie, or that any of them are flawless. The culmination or continuation or whatever we're calling it, they're flawed. They're riddled with them. That being said, like, I'm having fun with those flaws. And that, like, I'm not walking away like, oh God, that ruined it for me. I'm so upset that was there. It's like I'm sitting here with you guys laughing about it
Yeah.
and then talking about how much fun it was. I didn't walk out of that movie like, what I needed more of. Like I can sit here and jot down like what I would have liked to have seen, but I'm definitely not disappointed.
You know what the problem was? I just didn't understand the physics behind how radiation got imbued into the magical axe that King Kong wielded, and that just broke my suspension of disbelief.
I mean, I couldn't appreciate the gorgeous slow motion shot of a giant lizard with atomic breath as a monkey swings an axe at him, which, by the way, is gorgeous. I love
Gorgeous.
that so much. I love it. Like, again, that's a great example of Wingart knowing what you're here for, or knowing what he presumes
Yeah.
you're here for, to his credit. And I really, really, really appreciate that kind of aspect of the film, to be fair. And actually, one of the things I found interesting in talking about this with other people is obviously, first of all, Godzilla vs. Kong, massive success. And massive success in a variety of interesting ways. $70 million opening weekend in China. Something like $48 million, $48.5 million opening 5-day weekend in the States. Biggest opening since the pandemic began for Warner Brothers, for any studio, but Warner Brothers claiming it, for example. And obviously very on HBO Max simultaneously as well, which is remarkable because everyone is like, the arrival of these movies on HBO Max is going to kill cinemas. I think this is maybe a special case. I wouldn't say that's not something to worry about going forward, but I think it's interesting that this thrived in both environments. More than that, the critical reviews of this movie are incredibly positive. This is the joint best reviewed movie in the franchise, in the MonsterVerse franchise, in the 4 films, alongside Edward's Godzilla, and just 1 point above Kong Skull Island. And I have my issues with that, but I think it's interesting. And like, one of the things talking to people is that they really like that it's not, and this, to get back to what Jack said at the start, the idea of monster as metaphor, like, each of the 3 previous films, and like the entire Godzilla canon and the entire Kong canon, are very much monster as metaphor. Godzilla is both the embodiment of, nuclear horror and also the fear of like the rise of Imperial Japan that would cause atomic horror back in 1954 in the original version. He evolves into this metaphor for the environment around the time, I think, of Mothra, but also like Hedorah, Godzilla versus Hedorah, I think is one of the big ones. And also, if you're looking for a classic Godzilla movie to watch, Godzilla versus Hedorah is great. It has a James Bond opening theme song about the environment, and these wonderful animated interstitials, and a psychedelic like rock band nightclub that they keep cutting against, and the sludge monster puffs on a giant stack like it's a bong. It's amazing. If you just watch one classic Godzilla movie, watch Godzilla versus Hedorah. Make it that one. That one I would argue with. But like, even in these 4 MonsterVerse movies, like Godzilla in the first one is a metaphor for like the horror of 9/11, or like, if you want to get even more vague, the fear that God actively hates humanity. That was very common in 2010s movies. In Skull Island, it's a metaphor for like the idea of war within the human heart, and no man really ever comes home from war, he says, stroking his chin profoundly. But even in Godzilla King of the Monsters,
not only don't say that, stroking your chin profoundly, literally every character says that, in case you didn't understand the metaphor.
Yeah, which I kind of love that it's like, it's a giant ape movie, and they're like, let's stare at the Aurora Borealis and outline some themes. Let's do some which I kind of like. There's no I in theme work, unfortunately. And then even like Godzilla King of the Monsters is where this kind of falls down, because it's like trying to be an environmental metaphor, but it's about as like effective as an environmental metaphor as, if you remember, The Man with the Golden Gun, which was also a really weird environmental metaphor. But here with Godzilla versus Kong, it's just, there is no metaphor, there is no theme, there is no meaning, there is no subtext. You're here to watch a giant monkey punch a giant lizard in the face, and that's what you're going to get. And I kind of find it interesting that like, that's like something that I think a lot of people needed after the year that we've all had. Like, maybe perhaps to throw it out there.
Absolutely.
No, I like that idea. I think, like, one, going back to a little bit the idea of this being, very well performing in the box office. Like, obviously, that has a little bit to do with general relaxations of quarantine procedures, people feeling more comfortable to go out, vaccines are up, more places are opening in general, so more people are going to the theater.
New York is open. New York and Los Angeles are open again, I believe, and they're the key movie markets in the States, I think.
And so, like, obviously that has a lot to do with it, but this is to grab our namesake here. It's classic escapism, and it's that kind of dumb fun. Like, this is Fast and Furious level dumb and fun. Which is this is a compliment, by the way.
It's also about family. It is also about, like, its core theme. Its core theme is family. Like, if you were to boil down what the movie's about, like I love that the big capitalist overlord Walter Simmons is about to give this big speech about how capitalism triumphs over all, and like it's going to turn into a battle between Mechagodzilla as a representation of like capitalism run amok, and the lizard just blasts him. It's like, no, there is no meaning. Like,
Yes, that's not what people came here for.
Right. Well, and I for one, and obviously you all agree, love a big, dumb, fun movie. And so, yes, it does feel, it feels almost like a sigh of relief just to watch something that doesn't have a big weighty theme or metaphor. You can just enjoy buildings being smashed and a monkey with an axe.
Magic axe. Magic axe. It's important.
And here's the thing, like,
It's the scales of Godzilla's ancestors.
It's a scale of a
nothing.
Godzilla.
He's nothing without that power. Just saying.
And it's wrapped to a giant bone, and you know what? It's beautiful. And here's the thing, that got spoiled for me a little bit on social media before I watched the movie. I had heard or I'd seen on social media that King Kong had an axe, and I said, "Oh, that's stupid." And then you watch it and you go, "Oh, that's stupid."
But to be fair, like, again, Wingard has put a lot of thought into this, and his thought process there was like, you look at Godzilla and you see Godzilla, and his hide is almost impossible to penetrate. Missiles can't penetrate it. So I thought, what was the one thing that could penetrate Godzilla's hide? It would be Godzilla's own hide. So it has to be a spear or an axe with a scale of Godzilla on it. And it's like, I like your logic. I like that. Like, you're at just the right level of logic for the movie that you're making.
Exactly. Very surface. Like, it doesn't matter how that axe was made, the civilization revolving around that axe.
Who built that giant monkey sculpture? Like, I mean, Kong doesn't seem that good with his hands.
Like, not only that, who like carved a place for the axe, and how does the mechanism behind the nuclear energy of Godzilla imbue none of it, because none of it matters, none of it matters. That's where the bad guys say, actually, I really am the bad guy, and then they get crushed by the big monkey.
I think that the really fun part for me, which was one of the first things that I noticed, and like you said, it's fun, I don't care, but King of the Monsters, they go to Hollow Earth / Atlantis, and it's this big thing. It's like, oh gosh, this is so radioactive. You have to be super careful. My kids are going to be born with fins. This is terrifying. This time they go to Hollow Earth and they're like, let's take the last child of a nearly extinct people, just go down there for funsies and walk around and just breathe the air and watch it all happen. No concern whatsoever for whether or not, like, hey, is this safe? Like, I've heard some stories. Like, it's just let's go do it.
Even
and his dead brother, like his brother died during this. He's like, let's just load the kid in. Like,
that's what I kept, like, when you hit that point, they set up how dangerous this transition into Hollow Earth is going to be. And like, start preparing yourself, and I kept thinking, well, wait a minute, there's a fucking kid in there.
Yes.
Never brought up. We never get a shot of the kid struggling, because that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
And it would make it less fun. Like, it would make it less fun if you were to think in that moment, Jesus, they're torturing a kid.
No, that kid knows sign language. It can talk to the monkey. So that kid makes it through the whole movie, because we know the rules. We all understand the rules behind this movie.
Yeah, that's it exactly. And I mean, like, again, in terms of the movie's ruthless efficiency, like, I'm not a huge fan of the decision in general, but I admire the fact that it was taken, because, again, it speaks to the idea of designing this as a ruthlessly efficient film. Like, the entire indigenous population of Skull Island is erased in a single line. Like, a single line of exposition. Like, oh, by the way, there was a big storm, and everybody died except this one girl. Very cute girl. Like Kong, you know how Kong is with children. I'm sure it's just really well that it worked out this way. So
Mhm.
yeah, don't ask any questions. I kind of Rebecca Hall as the Kong Whisperer as well. I kind of like the Jane Goodall to this giant monkey who like has been apparently she's been signing at him for years, and Kong is just like "Bruh." It's
Like she wasn't the real Kong Whisperer here.
This lady. I also love it, like how uninvolved she is in her adopted daughter's life and in
Mhm.
Kong's life, even though that is her adopted daughter and her job, that she doesn't
Yeah.
realize that they've been talking together. Like, do
Yeah.
you leave your adopted daughter alone with the giant monkey?
Like all the time.
But like that's the implication is that she's just wandering around like inside the reserve. And like gorillas in the mist, I'm sure that you get a good relationship with your like animals. But like Kong is still at the stage where he's throwing trees randomly round his enclosure. I feel like maybe letting the adorable child wander through that space, not the best idea.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Also,
fair.
there are probably other monsters in there with him as well, given like what we saw in Kong Skull Island, right? There are like those tree monsters that eat people. There's those like pterodactyls that scoop up and split people. Unless they were also killed in the storm.
I don't believe so. So it seems like this is just an encampment that they built
Okay.
around this area. So I don't think they would have included all of that stuff, but that also, I mean, that would fundamentally change
Yeah.
Kong and his ability to adapt. You know, it's been for 48 years since Skull Island.
Mhm.
In the movie, and we don't know when any of this took place, but like just that process of like getting him to a location without these creatures, what do they do about the creatures? It's
Yeah.
like you said, like it doesn't matter,
Yeah,
but
that's
it's one of those fun things to play with in your head.
You have to assume they brought over some creatures because those creatures were also his food source.
Yeah.
Right.
But it actually
Bananas, Jack. Bananas.
this is Darren's hollow banana theory, and I do not buy it. No, well,
That's why I'm in the escapist basement near the flute class.
but also like it actually, the fun part about it is it really does make sense, because why else would Kong think to poke at the edges of his gilded cage if he didn't know something was wrong? So they didn't bring everything
Right.
over, so he knows something's wrong. That's why he's not poking at the edges, he's throwing trees at the
He's
edges.
at the edges.
Yes.
Monsterverse for speak. And somehow with that low protein diet, he somehow managed to put on something like 3,000 pounds or whatever since last we saw
Yeah.
him. Like
Right.
and like to give, and again, I feel like coming back to this, like even as the most critical of the three of us of the film, one of the things I actually really admire about Wingard's work here is the way in which and I think Liz mentioned this earlier when we talked about the four films. Each of the four films have their own distinct identity, and I think that comes from each of the directors.
Mhm.
In that, like
Mhm.
Edward's film, like his version of Godzilla is like it's very similar to his Monsters or his Rogue One or whatever. Like it's very much of a piece with those films. Films like say Kong Skull Island has this music video director aesthetic I associate with kind of Walt Roberts' work, and this obviously has Wingard who's like, yeah, I love pulpy stuff. Let me have all the pulpy stuff. But
Mhm.
one of the things that I really like about his work here is that he takes the care to like go and synthesize what he's doing with what the other earlier directors
Mhm.
did. So for example, he takes the needle drops from Walt Roberts kind of like approaching Skull Island and he ties those to Kong. So Kong gets, I think it's a Bobby Vinton introducing him, at the start. And then he gets Elvis Presley when he's on
Yeah.
the naval carrier going over.
Which was
And
so fun.
but that's like something that you can see he kind of ported over from Walt Roberts. It's like, this was part of Kong Skull Island. This is part of the language of Kong Skull Island. I'm making a movie that is in part a sequel to that. So I'm going to take those elements as well. And then he does things. And like, this is really great because I think Liz was right when she said like King of the Monsters, like you have difficulty seeing what's going on sometimes because it has like the starter kit, blue, orange, white things. Like,
Yeah.
like there's a moment in King of the Monsters where like Sally Hawkins' character dies. And like, I watched this movie twice, and like every time I watch it, I still have to wait until there's the big deceased picture in front of her name. Like when Sarazawa's like, oh, she died. It's like, oh, she definitely did die. That wasn't just bad editing. Like she did actually get crushed. But like it's all white, it's all blurry, it's all blue, it's very strong, it's very vibrant. Like again, I would argue King of the Monsters works best as a gift set. Like it's a number of really great shots,
Yes.
rather than action sequences. Like the trailer that does it to like Claire de Lune, where you have like Mothra under the waterfall,
Mhm.
or Ghidorah like on top of the volcano, like a demonic presence. That's the best stuff. Like in
Yes.
the movie, I would argue in King of the Monsters.
Absolutely.
But like Wingard goes to King of the Monsters and he says, okay, well, look, that was a very neon, very bright movie. So I'm going to take that color scheme as well. And instead of using like whites, blues, and oranges, I'm going to shift it slightly so it actually like looks great. Sorry, King of the Monsters. So I'm gonna go neon, and I'm gonna have purples and blues and reds. So it
Yeah.
looks like it's part of that world, but it's also just looks much more interesting visually, and it's a lot clearer. And like I really like that Wingart goes the effort of saying, these are what the three guys before me did.
Mhm.
This is what they brought to it. I'm going to do my own thing, but I'm also going to acknowledge that I actually really like the stuff that they did as well. So I'm going to fold that
Right.
in too. I think it's very clever and like really good filmmaking on a project like this, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you're right. Where it's hard to have a cohesive universe. Like they probably they might. I can't imagine they have someone at like Feige level there for their monster universe, and so having a director who is thinking about that is basically like a bonus.
Yeah, but also like the fact that when he does that, he doesn't sand down the edges. Like again, and like what Marvel do is fantastic. What Feige does is outstanding and stuff like that. But a lot of what he does is kind of sand down the rough edges at the corners so that you don't get anything that stands out too much in contrast. Whereas, like, this is insane. Kong listens to Elvis, and like Godzilla exists in a world of like neon purples. Like they're like making the two of them work together isn't easy, but Wingard kind of does it, which I love.
Yeah.
Like I think he deserves credit for that, and I think he does it without sacrificing either. Like Kong doesn't become much less interesting than he was in Skull Island. Godzilla doesn't become much more different than he was in the earlier two movies, and yet somehow they also fit together. I like again, no sanding. I think that's remarkable. I think that's like to his credit. I think that's really really impressive.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think like his tool bag here is on full display because not only like, we've kind of passively said like, some of the humans are the least part of the movie as they should be,
Yes.
but they're also the least part of the movie. That being said, everything is good. You have a good sense of what every character is. You have a good sense of space and location and relationship to one another, not only from a camera perspective, but also from a character perspective. They spend a good amount of time establishing people's relationships with each other, which is a very hard thing to do in a movie with so many moving pieces. Add to that, you have amazing special effects, amazing scenery, and amazing fight sequences. This is someone who obviously has spent a ton of time being a one-man filmmaking crew, and it is on display here. It's every part of this works way better than it should.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think honestly there's a real argument here so the writing of it is obviously very simple when it comes to a lot of it, and a lot of things aren't explained. And I was really thinking about it, like for example when Godzilla first attacks at about 10 minutes in the Apex facility in Florida, and the podcaster who for some reason has managed to go completely uncaught for 5 years, despite not disguising his voice and saying exactly where he was going and what he was going to do, but somehow, he happens upon this system that was triggering Godzilla, which is obviously in my mind a reference to the orca from King of the Monsters. That's what was triggering him, set everything into play. But they didn't go too deep into explaining anything because it seems like it was written at a very simplified level for the purpose of translation. They knew this was going to be something that they wanted to make sure wherever you were going to understand exactly what was happening. So remove anything that requires any sort of nuance in translation, and you're getting the same exact experience across the board.
That's a really interesting point. Because it's dumb. Like it's everything is dumb. And I'm not saying
everything is dumb.
Everything is dumb, and that's not a negative in this movie. But yeah, so there, the Apex Technologies is building Mechagodzilla. And as they are doing some sort of test in Florida, Godzilla can somehow sense the threat to him being the king of the monsters. And
the Alpha Titan, if you will.
I will, by the way. Thank you. He somehow
Wolfpack.
senses...
I'm really disappointed that nobody ever remarks on Godzilla's Wolfpack.
They do a little bit in King of the Monsters, right? They're using pack tactics.
Yeah.
I know. You saw me taking pictures of wolves. That's my whole thing. But so none of that makes any sort of logical sense. And I think in a slower movie, they would have had a character explain exactly how Godzilla was able to detect the
Yeah.
power generator radio waves.
Why
of
he
the-
could scan, like, is it Mechagodzilla's eye you see at one point? Like, it's the eyeball that they seem to
or the
have. but
power.
that's the-
That
yeah,
looked
maybe
like
it's the power, yeah.
the old power source that was in like
yeah.
the chess
Yes.
piece of the older Mechagodzilla.
And like why Godzilla like can't pick up Kong when he's inside the like holographic preserve, but he can when Godzilla is like tranked up to the gills. Sorry, when Kong is like tranked up to the gills being ported across. Because it's like and like the way in which they resolve the big fight between Kong and Godzilla is like Kong is knocked out and they're like, yeah, kill all the power. And it's like, okay, so why did Godzilla show up in the first place, given how heavily tranked you had him? But like, and again, like Jack's right, in a lesser movie, they'd be like, yeah, but people are going to be worried about plot holes. People on the internet are going to be like poking plot holes in this. It's like, no, it's a lizard and like giant monkey movie. I can just go with this stuff. I can take it on faith. Like, I just want the giant monkey and the giant lizard. I don't need 10 minutes of, yes, well, you see, once he left the enclosure, his pheromones entered the atmosphere. It meant that it was in the air that he was breathing, in the water. Godzilla could sense it. His receptacles are like 5,000 times more advanced than a sea lion. I don't need that. I don't need
Wait,
that.
why specifically sea lion? Did you?
Well, because it has to be something specific. First animal that came to my head. Like, because it has to be specific. It has to be like insanely specific, but also insane in order for the exposition to work. It's like, well, scientists have been studying fossils for ages. It's like if you look at this dolphin brain right here, it's like I feel like this isn't really relevant. You're just making me think that you've done more work than you have.
Absolutely.
It's like I did research on dolphin brains. It's in the presentation. Like that's it. I spent 3 hours reading about it. There was no way it wasn't making a slide.
Exactly, and I think, like, especially in kind of modern day internet culture, there are many brands. I'm looking at you, Disney, and all of your brands who encourage the fans to dig through and poke and keep that conversation alive, because that's what keeps the viral internet machine churning up content for free advertising. And part of the sigh of relief and the refreshing dumbness of this movie is they actively do not care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, again, part of me does wonder, like, are we going to see a follow-up to this? Because, I mean, obviously, I think Liz alluded to this. You've seen people on Twitter saying, continue the Monsterverse. And I think that
one of them.
Yeah. And I think there's been some suggestion. Again, like, this is one of the things where people say there are rumors. So does that mean there are rumors? Are the rumors people saying that there are rumors? But, like, people have been suggesting that, like, the next logical direction for the franchise is to do Destroy All Monsters or something equivalent to that as well, which I would totally be game for.
With
1999.
Destroyer.
Yeah, space monsters.
Yes.
Oh
My God, Space Godzilla.
Space Godzilla. Tell me you don't want the moon bases and all this sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, like that's the future there. And again, it's great when you watch it from like 1968, I think it was. But it's like by 1999, the world has solved all of its problems. Godzilla is living in a monster enclosure in what I think they called it Monsterland then, but it later became Monster Island. And it's just like, well, I guess mankind learned how to live with Godzilla, and it's a utopia now. So yeah, I would be game. I would love for that to be the direction this goes. But I do wonder, like, given how much it made at the box office, given the positive response to it, I can't see them not continuing this or not making
have
sequels.
to.
Yeah, as far as I understand it, the deal with Legendary is that Legendary can continue to make Godzilla movies as long as they continue to do so. It's a standard lapse thing. It's within time, as long as they make one every couple of years. And I don't know what that limit is. They don't have to renew the deal. It's very similar to, I think, what Sony has with Spider-Man. As long as Sony makes a Spider-Man movie once every 3 years, they never have to give him back. So I
Who wrote these deals? People
Marvel,
desperate
when
for
they're
cash.
very broke.
Yes.
That's exactly but yeah, so I imagine that we will probably see a sequel just based on the performance of this and the reception to it, because like people, like, I'm the most skeptical of the three of us, but people really love this, which is great. It's great to see that enthusiasm out there.
Absolutely. I think we haven't talked enough, by the way, about Hollow Earth. The entire sequence, like, one, getting to Hollow Earth, wallowing in the bizarreness of Hollow Earth, besides, of course, the giant. Oh yeah, right. Remember when Kong like poked at the little shiny rock with
That was so fun.
that's
Oh, gravity. I understand it now.
that's my favorite moment in the film, because like I talked about, like
Mhm.
one of my big problems with like King of the Monsters and this is that like nobody is awed by this anymore, which is kind of like haunting and empty and hollow and like hollow. But part of it is like nobody's like has that kind of like, like think of, is it Jurassic Park, where like
Mhm.
Spielberg spends so long on the characters going dinosaurs, 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 and you're like dinosaurs, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of communicative. But like what I really loved about the Hollow Earth sequence is that it's the one moment of genuine awe that you get
Yeah.
in the movie,
Mhm.
and it's Kong, it's the CGI monkey, and you're like, that CGI monkey is so amazed by what he's seeing. I'm moved like this. That was the
Yeah.
moment in the film where I was kind of like, I think I'm having a feeling for this. I think this has gotten past my like reptile brain, and my heart is like, you go, monkey. You live your best life. You do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Know what you need, Kong. Do it. But yeah, like the reaction shot in his face, the way in which he slowly like touches it, and the way in which gravity works, like that's the stuff. Like I would have wanted more of that from the movie. I would have wanted like the movie to be more like when Mechagodzilla approaches, for people to be like, this is beyond any scale of comprehension that I have. But like that sequence where he just taps the rock, it's like, oh, this is so good.
And then he goes full like Simon and Garfunkel. He's like, I'm the rock.
Well, we get amazing cinematography too, of like following all the creatures on the land, only to pan up to see that our heroes are actually on the other gravity Earth. Oh, it's so
Yeah.
it's awe-inspiring and beautiful. I'm actually just on your point there alone, Darren, about like making Mechagodzilla more of like an Omega threat at the end. I'm actually glad that they didn't, because the thing I always fear in movies like this is a forever escalation, power creep, if you will.
I mean, he's made of metal and he's a robot Godzilla. I feel like his power is already crept, even if you don't treat him with awe. Like, I feel like Mechagodzilla doesn't need your validation, but I feel like I feel like the movie does. But I feel like Mechagodzilla is like, again, one of the things I really like about like the fight sequence at the end is how like each of the characters have different fight styles. So like Kong is clever and has opposable thumbs, so he does things like throw the crane to distract Godzilla. He's like, now I can jump on him, which is great. Whereas Godzilla is just like, what fresh hell is this?
Right.
What is ruining my day? And
Well,
Mechagodzilla
no,
is just,
I would say that Godzilla had a clever moment there. Kong is fighting Mechagodzilla. He's swinging his axe, and Godzilla looks up and goes, "That needs to be charged." And they have that bro moment where he's like, "Let me get that for you,"
yeah.
and then he does. So just gonna put that out there. He's got some smarts.
They have that.
I was genuinely concerned about how they were going to like button up the bro moment, by the way.
Yeah.
'Cause, like obviously, like we know what kind of movie this is. We know that eventually they're going to fight Mechagodzilla together. Hooray, hurrah! But then, like they do the lock eyes. Wait, are they friends or foe? And I was expecting a fist bump. I will not lie to you. I was expecting a fist bump because
But
that kind of
Godzilla's paws are so small. How does Godzilla fist bump? Yeah.
And so I was genuinely concerned they were going to do something that crossed the Goofy line. And, this is a movie where Kong has a magic axe. So crossing the Goofy line would be a bad thing. But yeah, I think they resolved that very well.
I just want to come back real quick to what you were saying about Hollow Earth and how we hadn't talked about that enough. That was just, it was amazing. And I would watch an entire movie just set in Hollow Earth. But I think that was very important because up until that point in the movie, Kong had been very humanized. And up until that point, just in the universe, he was in containment. He was around humans all of the time. He had this very human element. And then he gets down there and he grabs a pterodactyl and rips his head off and eats his brains. And it's like, oh yeah, he's an animal, a really dangerous animal. And I think that was important because up until that point, like, he didn't seem like a genuine competitor against Godzilla. And it's like, okay, hold on, here we go. Like, the underwater fight, which was amazing. I was so worried about that, but it was amazing. I could see everything. It was really cool.
Is it, by the way, is it
he was
super
always
sad?
at that disadvantage.
Is it super sad that like one of your positives has to be I could see everything? Like,
But I could. Like, I
King of
think
the
that's so
Monsters.
important. Like, I think that's so. I loved King of the Monsters. I thought it was really fun. But
Mhm.
ultimately, like, if you're not watching it at midnight in a pure dark room, you're not seeing what's happening. That's how it is. 2014 Godzilla was the same way. It was super dark. But yeah, I think that was a really critical for setting him up as somebody I could actually see Godzilla fighting and having a shot in hell of being able to win,
Well, and-
is ripping that head off and
Yes.
just like, oh.
it's the beautiful dance that they have to perform when you have fan favorites, right? Because
Mhm.
Kong's got to win a little, Godzilla's got to win a little, just so anyone who's a Kong head or a Zilla head, which are the official names now,
Okay.
gets bragging rights. And so, but again,
Kongsmen, maybe? Would they be Kongsmen?
Ooh, I
That's
like
good.
it. And Zillows. No, wait, that's a different thing.
Yeah, sorry. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, to your point, sorry.
The balancing act that they did was really great because obviously Godzilla had a huge advantage in that first fight because it was mostly water based. Still, Kong got to have a lot of fun set pieces, and then in the second fight, Kong kind of wins because he gets the magic axe. Obviously, Godzilla wins at the end because, of course,
Yeah.
Godzilla's going to win.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
Come on.
Obviously.
Well, I mean, like, I actually really like that in terms of structuring, and
Mhm.
kind of like maybe we'll get back to like the use of the two characters and the archetypes that they represent, which I thought was very good. Like Godzilla as this kind of like reptile brain monster, and Kong is this like all-American sweetheart. I think we joked beforehand that like Kong played like quarterback on his like high school football team.
Yep.
He has that sort of like wholesome vibe to him. And like Godzilla on the other hand is just like, this city is in my way. I don't really care. But like one of the things I actually really admired about it is that it let Kong lose twice. Now, Jack is right. They do the fan like thing where it's like, if you're rooting for Kong, you at least get to see him tear
Yes.
the hell out of Mecha Godzilla. So like Kong doesn't come out as a loser. And to be fair, as Liz pointed out, Kong puts up a good fight in both of the early two arenas. Like I think at one point, Sarsgaard actually literally calls, and I know I'm referring to him as his actor name because I'm not going to remember his character, but he refers to him as like round 2 goes to Kong, but then then Godzilla. Yeah, but then Godzilla goes, no, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Knocks it down again. Like, I actually really like that Wingard avoids that obvious cliche of having like Kong lose the first time and then have the big heroic arc of winning the second time. So that it's kind of like the end of, is it Rocky 3 where we freeze on the punch? And it's like, see, either side can claim a victory here. It's like, no, Godzilla very clearly won.
Yes.
Like there is a clear victor here. 2 out of 3 knockouts, best of 3. Godzilla took it.
TKO,
TKO, and I really admire that. Like again, the movie did that while also, as Jack pointed out, doing the fan service stuff as well without alienating fans, which I thought was quite nice as well.
Absolutely, and you need stuff like that. I know, like I was watching these with my children, and youngish children, and so the constant question was like, wait, so is Godzilla the bad guy now? Wait, is Kong the good? Like, there's like questions like that. And it's like, well, neither. Haha. Like, that's the point of the movie. They're animals. They just do the stuff. Oh. So, from like a child's perspective, it's like, wait, who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? Doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, none of those questions were asked because they were punching each other.
I mean, again, the line, Godzilla's out there and he's hurting people and we don't know why. Again, like he's been sending rude text messages or something. It's like, I've had a couple of points to drink and I'm going to tell you what I think about you, Mothra. It's like, damn it, Godzilla, go home. You've done enough emotional damage.
Godzilla, you up?
Yeah.
Just no response,
tiny
no
little
response,
pause, yeah. But that was the other message. Like after he was messaging his daughter, he's like, call me, please. It's like, and then check back. Godzilla's still not read. No red, no.
Right, and it's like he has like 20 unread messages, and you're like, well, I've gone too desperate now. I just have to keep going.
Yeah.
Can we talk about what a bad dad he was, though? It's like, oh, my daughter's missing. I haven't heard from her. I'm just gonna go to Hong Kong then.
Absolutely.
I have no concern whatsoever. He's already lost one child, and he's just like,
and his wife
whatever.
and his ex-wife as well. Like,
oh, she sucked.
She did, but it feels like when you lost 50% of your family unit, the one
Right.
remaining one you kind of have an obligation to. And again, like I like the movie's efficiency where it's like, by the way, we prepared a flight for you to Hong Kong. And it's like, there's no moment where he's like, but wait, my daughter, or
He's
like,
all right, bye.
yeah. I guess it's booked now. I mean, otherwise it's going to show up in an expense scandal in a couple of years. And I really don't want that.
Which I love because my least favorite part of King of the Monsters was him looking for this kid. So I'm glad we just didn't do that again. It wasn't believable to me. So I'm supposed to believe that in 12 minutes, and they made a big deal out of saying you've got 12 minutes. Okay. He lands in Boston, which I'm sorry, but it's not a grid city. It looks like someone dropped a plate of spaghetti and said, F it, it's roads. And he somehow cleared the entire encampment where everybody was going because they were displaced, deduced that his child wasn't there, happened upon his ex-wife somehow, and went, oh, I know where she is, found her, and then escaped. It wasn't even 12 movie minutes. But I'm supposed to believe that in that small span of time, all of this happened. And I'm glad this time he was just like, she's probably fine.
She's done it already. Like, to be, teenagers, right? Teenagers.
She found a bathtub to hide in. She's good.
Let's be fair to the bad parent for a little bit, because at the end of the day, it's very bad parenting. She has a history of escaping eco-terrorists, saving the planet with technology, and then surviving a monster attack all on her own. You have to give her a little bit of leeway.
And he still won't buy her a fucking car. Like, she still needs a comic sidekick to have a van, Like, shout out, actually, I think, like, to be honest, I would argue the MVP, the most valuable player here, is probably Brian Tyree Henry as Bertie Hayes, the podcaster.
Yes.
The obligatory comic relief / exposition machine. Because he was fun. And I think he managed to do the thing of, like, delivering exposition and being funny, which is like everything that you need a human character to do in the movie that you have designed this to be, which is to be entertaining when he's on screen and also to tell us things about why the monsters are punching each other, which I thought was good.
Without taking focus. Like, it reminds me of a scene in Ocean's 11 where it's like, he's got to love you and then forget about you the second you're gone. And it's like, you did that for me. Like, I loved you and I was good when you left.
And I was good when you left. But, like, even beyond, like, just, like, enjoying him on screen, the little peppers of backstory, of, like, his own internal motivation for why he is the person he is today, we get enough sprinkles to give him a fully fleshed out character.
And Chekhov's flask. Movie. And Chekhov's flask. Don't forget Chekhov's flask.
Can't forget Chekhov's flask.
Which is, I think, at just the right level of dumbness for the movie that we're in. I feel like it's neither too high nor too low. It's neither too smart nor too stupid for the movie that we've kind of settled in. It's like, yeah, sure, this'll unlock the security and not blow up the computer.
Right, but it does. How do you best explain a movie like this, where it's like the only thing that matters in a movie like this is exactly what the characters tell you, and so, like, we have all the information we need. We will not be conjecturing how Millie Bobby Brown was able to lock the door to a facility in Hong Kong that she has never been in before. That doesn't matter. She had the code and she did the thing.
Yeah. And, like, would you spending 10 minutes watching her, like, steal a code or steal, like, a bracelet or steal something like that be time well spent in a Godzilla movie? It would not.
No, because then we have less creatures punching each other. That's why we're there. Yes to everything. What a phenomenal movie. what a phenomenal series of movies. I say that obviously with a big grain of salt, as they are what they are, unapologetically. But isn't that the point?
It was both the hero we needed and the one we deserved.
Right now.
No.
I mean, again, yeah, I don't know. Again, like, being the cynic on the podcast, like, I think it's better than King of the Monsters. I still like, the first Godzilla has its fair share of problems, most of which, again, Aaron Taylor Johnson, the poor man's Tom Hardy affordable in Tenet. But, like, I mean, oh yes, I went there. Watch out, Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Wow.
But like, I don't know. I guess I much preferred, like, the ambition of, like, the Edward's Godzilla and like the fun of Kong Skull Island to kind of this it was what it was, and it was solid, but it felt a little bit hollow, ironically, at points for me. It felt I know. And again, like I know it's doing exactly what it sets out to do.
It's supposed to be hollow.
Yeah. Very fair point.
It is meeting my expectations. I walked in knowing exactly what to expect. That doesn't mean that I didn't see that trailer and map out the entire movie in my head, of which I was totally wrong. Like I said, I thought Sarazawa would have a bigger role in it. I really thought Mechagodzilla was going to have his rubber suit and maybe come out earlier. But it doesn't matter because I got what I was promised.
And like, you know, we talk about that a lot, especially like I know I forget if it was last week or the week before, but we were talking about the Snyder cut and how like even though I personally don't like Zack Snyder as a filmmaker, he always gets what he wants on screen, and that means he wins as a director. That means he does.
You make it sound
the
like
job.
Alien versus Predator. It's like Snyder versus Jack. Whoever wins.
Yeah, I don't have to enjoy the art to respect the art, to respect the artist or the art, or however we want to say that. Yeah. And so with all of these movies, and I still think Kong Skull Island is my favorite of the movies, mostly just because we get a For Your Health nod with John C. Reilly's character, and I think that's hilarious. Dr. Steve Brule shout out. But that... like Liz just said, this is exactly the movie you expect it to be. Nothing more, nothing less. It is dumb and loud and CGI beasts roaring at each other, and you'll enjoy it. That's all. What else do you need? What do you need?
Yep.
That's a very, very fair question. And again, stands out quite strongly from a lot of contemporary blockbusters. And again, it's that lack of that Feige thing that you mentioned, where like a lot of modern blockbusters are streamlined. I think like you singled out like the Disney tendency to be like ironic or self-aware, or to like draw attention or over-explain stuff, or to be cognizant of the fact the internet's going to be poking holes in it. So I mean, I do kind of like in that sense admire it as something of a throwback, even though again the CGI technology that's being used to realize it didn't exist even 10 years ago. So again, I admire the existence of this kind of blockbuster where like it is a shared universe, but it's a shared universe where each of the 4 films is insanely different from the others, and somehow it works. Like somehow they fit together in some pattern. This like, which I kind of admire in this age of extremely streamlined algorithm-driven content. It's like, yeah, sure. I've watched Kong versus Godzilla, so we're going to drop in some needle drops there. I've watched King of the Monsters, so there's going to be lots of neon. Also, I understand that you are not here for the human people, so there's not going to be many of those. Though there are far too like. Again, this is sorry. I feel like I'm ruining the fun here, but like one of my minor problems with like Godzilla versus Kong is that you get the sense watching it that like, and I think Wingard did it exactly how he wanted to, and I think the movie is the better for how it turned out. But like watching it, you get a real sense that like Wingard figured out what it was in the edit rather than the writing. So like there are far too many human characters for the amount of stuff the human characters need to do. Like, as in, like, you get the sense that if you were building this movie from the ground up, knowing what it looked like now, knowing that you were going to release this movie, it would have at least 5 fewer main characters than it does. And that's kind of like, you know, so for example, the whole like Aiza Gonzalez character, the Mia Simmons character, you know, the character we mentioned, the Lance Reddick character, the fact that like you could probably get away with combining, say, Nathan Lind and Irene Andrews into the same character, Alexander Skarsgård and Rebecca Hall. And like watching it, it occasionally feels like, you know, and again, Wingard has said that there's a 5-hour cut, and I want to be very clear. I'm not at all suggesting release the Wingard cut, because again, this is this is one of the things where like the release of the Snyder cut has kind of altered the way in which people think that movies are made. Like the way that movies are made is assembly cuts are literally everything that you shot in sequence. So you just lay out everything that you have done, and then you start hacking away the pieces to make it resemble a movie. So the fact that there's a 5-hour assembly cut version of Godzilla versus Kong does not mean that we are going that anybody on the face of this planet should want a 5-hour version of this movie. I don't want a 5-hour. Please don't. But like, but you get it. You get a sense watching it of how like that assembly cut was like not 3 hours long, not 3.5 hours long, but 5 hours, because there's just so many people here.
Yeah.
And I think like Jack's entirely right. Like you get a sense. I think he mentioned. I can't remember which character it was. He mentioned it in relation to. I think it may have been the kind of friend played by Julian Dennison. But like the idea of cutting out the little. Or no, maybe it was Sarazawa. But like the idea of like you cut this
trim
scene.
that, yeah.
Yeah, you cut that scene there to make it quicker, but then you got to cut that bit as well, and before you know it, you've lost an entire character arc, but you still have the character,
But you still have the character.
which is interesting. Like it's an interesting way of looking at how movies are made, perhaps.
Well, and that's it's all part of the process. Movies are a giant, multi-million-dollar collaborative piece of art, and that's how they've always worked. We are now just lucky enough to live in an age where we get to see a little bit of how the sausage was made.
Yeah,
And I really enjoy that part of it. But yeah, that is my negative to the movie is you can definitely see the harsh edges of the edit, if you will. Like you can see where they could have cut a little bit more. You can see where they did cut and you want more, and that's okay because
you can see where it used to be Chris Pratt on Parks and Rec, but now it's Chris Pratt from like Guardians of the Galaxy. You can see like how that process happened watching the movie, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, for me, for Liz, Darren being a big grump, it was definitely fine. I'm sorry, I'm casting.
I haven't been that much of a grump,
I'm casting you
fair.
as the villain. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm about to deliver a giant monologue. I sure hope that a big giant monster doesn't rise up behind me and vaporize me mid-speech. Which again,
that was amazing.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like that's Wingard going, I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm not doing. I know what this movie is and I know what this movie isn't, crucially. And like I kind of like I admire the gumption of that, and I think that it works really well. And again, you have the nice little button on it where Bernie Hayes like, I was really looking forward to that speech.
Yeah.
Now I want the Jack versus Darren movie. It'll never happen. We're generally nice people. Generally.
Yeah, I mean, unless somebody drops Die Hard into the chat.
Don't do it.
That's a fight. And what I will say, actually, very quick one, because I feel like we're wrapping up. The aircraft carrier fight, I kind of love because it reminds me of like those old stories that you would hear about, like, and again, I think it was New York, but like it's in Gangs in New York with by Scorsese. But like when boxing is made illegal in places, and you like move to international waters, you do it in the bay, so that's technically outside the city. And I kind of like part of my brain was like, I love that Adam Wingard like clearly went to the mind space of, well, where would it be legal to have a giant lizard and a giant monkey fight? International waters. And it's like it very much because the way in which it's framed, you mentioned you get that wide shot of Kong doing like the punch and like the lean in kind of punch.
I love it, yeah.
It's a great shot, but it's very much like this is a boxing arena. This aircraft carrier is like a floating boxing ring. And I kind of love that Wingard is not at all embarrassed by that. He's just like, yeah, like this looks like something from like an 18th century paper, you know, like where you're getting like the blow by blow account afterwards. Yeah, it's like
that's fair. Well, and hopefully this does lead to an age of anti-cynicism as far as big dumb movies like this are being made, because you know, I know we poked at the Disney machine a little bit about how they like to wink and nudge about how they're being so cheesy, huh? Isn't this weird how we're being so cheesy when really they're just being cheesy? We're okay with it. We
own it, yeah.
We like it. This did really well at the box office. We like it when you're cheesy. It's fun. We get to have fun at the movies. Remember fun?
Remember movies?
Remember movies?
I feel like is fun or are movies the further memory away at this point in time? Which one of them do you remember more clearly?
Yes.
Exactly. So, you know, before we fully wrap up here, any final thoughts to leave on Godzilla versus Kong is there a name for this universe?
The Monsterverse?
The Monsterverse.
Yeah.
Or the Monsterverse in general. Liz, any final thoughts?
Yeah, my big thing is I do hope there's more. I think there were a lot of Easter eggs left that could ultimately result in something new. not just Easter eggs, but actually literally eggs, because the Mothra eggs are still out there. The Ghidorah head is still in play. So something could be done there. And obviously, with the Oxygen Destroyer being used in King of the Monsters, that lays the groundwork for Destroyer. All of which I would love to see. I would also like to see a Space Godzilla if they decided to throw that at me. I am 100% the target audience for this. I like the big dumb fun. I would love more big dumb fun.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, and we know King Ghidorah is an alien, so we can have aliens very easily.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean, yeah, the aliens are right there as well as the Killians. The Killans, are they the other alien species as well? Because like the Godzilla franchise has human-like aliens that traditionally cause the monsters to
Oh.
escape and destroy humanity.
Mhm.
Because you just need a plot like that every once in a while. I mean,
Obviously.
obviously.
Even Jason went to space.
Yeah.
Inarguably the best one, absolutely.
It had that X appeal, did it? If I remember
Mm.
correctly, did I get the number right?
X
I
gonna
think I did.
give it to you.
X gonna give it. To you.
Absolutely. No, and a ton of fun, and like not just all of those as setups. We have the entire Hollow Earth to play around with. Just
Yeah.
give me a movie in the Hollow Earth, new tiny. Like don't even need to be big monsters. Give me Journey to the Center of the Earth, and we're having fun.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to see more wonder. And again, like this is the thing where I feel like I'm being the grump, where it's like these movies have actually been very varied in terms of tone and style. And I
Mhm.
would like to see more of that. And I would like to see more of the weirdness that I associate with the Japanese movies from which this is drawing.
Mhm.
So I would love to see something equivalent to Godzilla versus Hedorah or Mothra versus Godzilla, where you have these elements that are like, again, we mentioned the fact that like there's no irony here, there's no sense of like self-awareness, or there's no deflection. I'd like to see that kind of taken to the next level and kind of elevated and escalated further, to be honest. But yeah, no, I kind of really like that stuff. I would maybe like to see a return of the idea of like awe and wonder to these movies, in the sense of like, I don't need characters to spend the entire movie going, oh my god, what is happening? This is the sixth monster attack in the past 12 years. We're still not getting used to it. But just even like, again, I was watching like Pacific Rim again as part of like my Keiju fix.
Mhm.
And there's a moment in Pacific Rim where there's just a boy and his father like searching for metal detectors, and this giant robot just stumbles out of somewhere and collapses onto the beach. I want like more scenes like that sort of stuff that actually says what you're seeing is massive from a human perspective. What you're seeing is gigantic in scale and spectacle. And again, it's ironic, like we had that big argument about like the need for a wide shot. I kind of want more reaction shots. I kind of want more of like characters going, this is not what I trained for. This is not like there's no manual for this. What the fuck is going on? So that like I want more of that. I want more wonder and more awe in the franchise, if that's, you know, possible, and some weirdness. I want more. I want space, like Liz. I want space. I want aliens. I want moon bases. I want Godzilla in space. I want alien invasions. I want, you know, that sort of stuff. Give me all the crazy stuff. Give me like psychedelic funk stuff. Give me a theme song in Japanese about like the environment. Where have all the fish gone, Jack? Where have all the fish gone? Like give me
The oxygen bomb killed them all. We saw that.
give me a giant monster that sits on a smokestack and just kind of puffs away, man. Like give me all of that stuff. That's what I want, the good stuff.
Well,
Sorry, I'm very specific. I like that. I
I
started
love
general, and then I was like, no, this is specifically what I want.
You got very hyper focused there, which is great. And I think like when and if all of that happens, no, not if, when all of that happens, because it will. Liz, you'll have to come back and talk to us again about all of that. Thank you everybody for watching and or listening to this Godzilla vs. Kongcast. Once again, I've been Jack Packard for The Escapist.
I've been Darren Mooney, also for The Escapist.
I've been Liz Finnegan, also kind of for The Escapist.
Whee! Thanks everyone. Bye. Credits. Boom.
And we can still hear us. Could they still hear us?
They
can
could,
still hear
yeah. Usually I keep us on in case we have any parting jabs.
us. Profound
to jib.
insights. Yeah.
Do we have anything profound to say?
No.
No, it was just fun.
Yeah, well, it was actually just fun. And I loved like the scars on Kong. He still had the scars.
It's fun.
It was.